Welcome back to the Ethan Claire podcast show. We are here tonight. It is a Wednesday night right now. A little bit of a nice Wednesday night. It is not too hot in here. If you remember last week, we were sweating our butts off in this room. It was a sauna. This week it's kind of nice, a little hot, but it isn't too bad. And it is a great week to be back on the podcast with a couple guys who were the original podcast brothers. Tylan Porath, good to have you back.
Thanks.
And Colin Clare. He was on last week, weren't you, Colin?
Nope, not last week.
Oh, you weren't on last week?
But the 2 weeks before.
2 weeks before. Good to have you back on as well. This is the original podcast crew. And before we introduce the guest of the night, I need to I need to announce the winner of the Jason Purrington for Sheriff shirt. We are giving away a shirt right here. Orange, it's a medium shirt. Let's see who won this shirt. Remember, all you got to do to win any of the prizes on this show is just share, comment, like, retweet, pretty much anything. Oh, and make sure you give a review to the podcast on Facebook or iTunes, whatever platform you're listening on. Make sure you give it a positive review. The winner of the shirt, drum roll please, Jake Holt. Jake Holt is the winner of the shirt.
Wow, and his brother was on.
His brother was on the podcast a couple weeks ago. It was great to have Lee on here. Maybe we'll have to get Jake on as well.
What size is that? Because he's a pretty big guy.
He's a pretty big guy. This is a medium. Maybe give it to his girlfriend. Or he's married, isn't he?
He's married, yeah.
He is married. Yep. Okay. Give it to his wife. We have, this week, we're giving away a copy of our fourth feature film, Cottonwood, who everyone here helped with, besides John.
Yeah.
Should have got you in it.
Well, you know, I just wanted, I've been here, this will be my second time, and I'm just wondering if you should be giving away free copies of that to every guest.
Oh, there we go. Who knows?
John probably hasn't even seen it yet, have you?
Oh, of course.
You were at the premiere?
I'm not at the premiere. I got a copy from Kira and brought it home.
Oh, really?
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Well, we are giving away.
Screened it at my house.
There we go. We're giving. He probably burned it.
Well, I don't want to talk about that. You mean like literally you set it on fire?
Yeah, yeah.
You're talking. I did make illegal copies, though.
Oh.
They're all the rage in C-Line. I think I've given away like 17 copies.
Oh, my
I tried
gosh.
selling them. But,
unbelievable. You're taking away, pirating our movies. We're giving away, though, a free copy of our movie, Cottonwood. All you got to do to win it is share, comment, like, retweet, pretty much anything. Give the podcast a good review, and we will get you in the drawing to win that. And this week will be the most shared, uncommented, unliked podcast of all because no one wants to copy the movie.
I do.
You do?
I haven't got my copy yet.
Oh, we got plenty of them at home if you want one.
All right.
Enough of these guys. It is great to be back. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We will be moving to Mankato in not this next week, but the week after. So we will be moving the podcast with us. I don't know who we're going to find in Mankato. John, if you know anybody out there, hit us up or let us know.
I know many people.
In Mankato? Well, we got to get them on the podcast.
Any weirdos?
Any weirdos?
All weirdos. I thought that's what we were looking for.
Just go to Walmart and get about 50 different people
there you go.
up.
You go to Walmart after 11 p.m., and this is not your audience, but there's a section of the population can only shop there from 11 p.m. on because a certain segment of the population is allowed there then. You know what I'm getting at?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And so if you're looking for what I call the Canadian tuxedo, which is denim on denim, or just people that are probably banned from there when children are present, that's your time. So maybe you can just set up on location out at the cart corral. And
there we go, right by one of the trailers out there in the parking lot.
That's it, just call it.
I wouldn't
get
put the podcast on the trailer, just talk to customers.
There we go.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to bring them back to our house.
No, for sure. They might never leave. Jeez.
You might never leave.
Got some boarded up windows.
Yeah. Well, John Gibeau is back on. That is the guest of the week here. John, you were on, I don't remember what episode it was.
What was
pretty
it,
early.
week 4?
It was like 3 or 4, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And we talked about New World Order, Illuminati. We talked about that camp where all the rich old men went and bathed in the lake together naked.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember. That was a long time ago. That was back in March, I think, is when we did that.
Yeah.
And so now we got the middle, pretty much the end of summer now. End of summer's coming here quick. And now we're talking about a couple more conspiracy theories, a couple more things. Before we get into anything, though, we need to give a pretty big update that we talked about 2 episodes ago. We talked about Mollie Tibbetts. It's the most popular podcast episode. A lot of people were interested in that. And when did they find her body? Was it just a couple days ago?
Yeah, yesterday.
Yep.
Yesterday, like
was it?
5 a.m.
No, it wasn't yesterday. It was like 2 days ago, I'm pretty sure.
Maybe 2 days.
Because the what's it called? Press conference was yesterday. That's when I heard.
The press conference was later on in the day. I found her body in the morning.
And they did the press conference right after?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, then you're right. Yeah, so it was yesterday. And for people who are listening, this will be 2 days before that they found her. But very sad news. Not an ending that anybody wanted, obviously. But I'm glad that the family has closure, and this didn't end up being a Jacob Wetterling type case where 27 years later they find a body and they get somebody. Now it seems like they got a guy, and we could talk a little bit more about that because it gets a little political, but why don't we watch the news video here to kind of give people a little bit more of a background because we don't know everything.
24-year-old Christian Rivera is expected to appear at Poweshiek County Court charged with first-degree murder in the death of Mollie Tibbetts. Police say that Rivera confessed that on July 18th, the day that Mollie Tibbetts disappeared, he followed her on her jog and she became frightened and got out her cell phone and said, "Get away from me, I'm going to call police." And at that point, he blacked out and says he doesn't remember what happened next, but that Mollie Tibbetts ended up in his trunk with the bloody skull. Ultimately, police tracked down Rivera and he led them to Tibbetts' body that he says he hid in a cornfield. ICE now says Rivera is from Mexico and they have placed a detainer request on him here in this county. We've also learned Rivera worked at a farm just a few miles from where Mollie vanished. Yarrowby Farms released a statement saying Rivera was an employee in good standing and that he somehow passed the government's E-Verify employment system despite his status as an undocumented worker. The Des Moines Register newspaper reports it has reviewed documents that list several owners of that farm, and the owners might be relatives of Craig Lang, who reportedly was a former Republican candidate for Iowa's agriculture secretary. Mollie's mother was with her two sons, Mollie's younger brothers, at the press conference where police announced her daughter's death. She remained stoic and quiet as she has throughout this entire ordeal. Mollie's dad, Rob Tibbetts, lives in California. He spent a full month on the ground here in Iowa pleading for information and doing every interview he could because he said he wanted to keep his daughter's name out on people's minds. Authorities eventually advised him to get back to a normal routine in California. He returned to California just a few days ago, only to receive the bad news. And Mollie was expected to return to the University of Iowa as a sophomore, and there is a vigil there tonight.
Interesting. Well, it's sad to hear all this stuff. One of the things I didn't really understand is they're talking about, I just thought it was a random detail they threw in. They're like, the farm owners, brothers, cousins, like they went on some big thing, is a Republican candidate running for something. Like, I don't really know that has to do with anything. I just thought that was randomly thrown in there.
I think the problem we have already is just the politicization of it. From the moment that I heard that it was an illegal immigrant that had killed her or had allegedly killed her, I think the focus immediately shifted to, and in my mind too, it was, well, why is he here? Because if he isn't here, could it still happen? Well, if you're one of those people that believe in, hey, if it's your day to die, it's your day to die, I don't believe that garbage.
No.
I mean, if that guy isn't here, he's not committing that murder.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it goes back to this. There's a pervasive part of this society, the males in this society, that prey on women. And I think it's a society problem, and it's something that has to get fixed. I don't think that this is immune to a Hispanic fellow for sure.
No.
I mean, this is way deeper in our society where I think there's some women that get, or some men that prey on women, and that's what we got to look at here. I mean, this guy apparently had no problem. Well, he was a great employee. That means nothing. I mean,
Yeah.
You know, how many people had kept jobs or whatever were supposedly upstanding citizens, and they have 14 people in their basement. I mean, it's.
How did he pass the E-Verify? Colin was telling me about how these guys, these illegal immigrants or whatever, steal. Were you telling me about that? They steal people's identities, or they take.
Oh yeah, to go work at when it was PM.
Yeah. People were taking people's
and
identities.
then Homeland Security would show up and tell
get
them
a truckload
that
of them, and then
no, they'd tell them they need to bring their papers, whatever, tomorrow. They wouldn't show up,
and then they'd just come back a couple weeks later with a new identity or whatever.
Yeah, something like that.
I just don't understand how someone like that's working for somebody and they don't know it or whatever. How do you get away with that?
I think I'll be honest. I mean, as an employer, at one point, you have to provide two forms of identification to make that happen. And those forms, one is a driver's license, one can be a passport, one can be what they call your green card, or another one's your ability to work. You have to have actually a form of an identification that shows your ability to work.
Yeah.
I think some of these employers turned a blind eye. That's the bottom line of it.
They don't check
they're there.
everything?
Sure, they know they're there. I am certain that some of these employers, and I'm not speaking of any specifically, because I think we have to be careful too that we don't defame people who are local employers.
Oh yeah,
at all. This is not an indication of any local employer.
No.
But I know there are employers across the country that have been caught, supplying Social Security numbers of dead employees or people that that they've known in the past. There's people that have stolen that. They've been convicted of that. There's people that have been convicted of stealing Social Security numbers.
Yeah.
And so they're still paying into the system just under a different name.
Wow.
And this is where, honestly, this is the part of where this was going to go that I was afraid of, is that, let's talk about illegal immigrants, but I'm the father of 5 children.
Yeah.
I see something like that, and I'm angry, but I look at that poor mom and dad, and I'm sad.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so sad for them. Someone in the prime of their life being struck down for what? She was out on a run.
Yeah.
And this isn't in New York City. This is the middle of nowhere, Iowa.
Relates pretty close to what we're around here.
Yeah, way smaller than Windham, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Poweshiek County, I'm telling you right now, unless this happened, Fox News would never know how to pronounce Poweshiek County. It's the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, right from the beginning of this whole thing, since the news broke, it was politicized. I saw on Twitter or whatever, there's been a ton of people, and the first thing they said was build the wall. Like, why don't we, first of all, before we get anything political, just give our sympathy or whatever to the family of this, and just, don't bring politics into it. Hey, that's fine if you want to talk about it, because obviously there's a big issue there if there's an illegal immigrant who killed her. But before we start talking about what we're going to do to figure that out, let's just not jump left or right. Let's just say, we're sad for the family, and we need to stop people like this from ever doing it again, no matter who it is. And then we can talk about politics. But the day that it happens, within an hour of it happening, they're already blasting politics at the family. And, that just doesn't seem like the right way to go about things. It just seemed it was depressing to me to see that going on.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it comes down to what people don't want to talk about in this country, and it's mental health.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you have a mental health breakdown, trust me, you have to spend a lot of time, if it's one of your family members, trying to get them help. Unless they're hurting themselves or hurting someone else, they don't really even care that they're having a mental health problem. And our society turns a blind eye to that.
Oh, yeah.
It puts law enforcement in a difficult spot, because most of them have not been trained how to deal with people that are having mental problems. And so they deal with it in the cop way, which is, hey, you're a regular person, you're going to get arrested for swinging at me or spitting on me. And there was a guy here 6-8 months ago that got shot that was mentally disabled, and he didn't realize what he was doing, because he is. And the cop pulled out his gun and shot him. Jeez. And I felt bad for the cop too, because the cop wasn't trained.
Yeah.
What do they say? They spend 8 hours a year at training how to deal with people with mental disabilities.
Something like that.
That's not nearly enough. No. Especially when you're dealing with life and death situations. Yeah. And so here we are again, this young man. And I'm not saying everybody should feel sorry for him, but clearly something wasn't right with this guy.
Oh, yeah.
And he made a bad choice, and his life is forever destroyed. Of course, Mollie's is destroyed. The family of Mollie is destroyed. And it just leaves us all wondering, like, if we have kids or brothers, sisters, whoever. I mean, that could have been us.
Oh, yeah.
The community is even somewhat destroyed, I'd say.
Yeah,
I think everybody changes their whole mindset, because they said the doors, never lock the doors. Kind of like Windham. People around here, you don't really think anyone's going to do anything. I feel like everyone in that community now, they're saying the same thing. It's a spooky thing, and it could happen really anywhere. It doesn't just happen in big cities or Chicago, or it happens in small town Minnesota or Iowa.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting that he says he blacked out.
Yeah, I did. Oh, that was what I was going to bring up. I don't understand that. He said he blacked out and then woke up and she was dead or something.
Does that happen a lot? Like,
no. Do you ever hear that, though?
Oh, no. I've never heard.
Right.
I have heard of that. I've heard
you?
of people, what happens is that they get overcome by so much panic that they end up basically forgetting. It's a type of psychosis, basically. It's an actually defined psychosis where they're so overcome with emotion or fear that their mind shuts off and they just kind of behave. Really? And that's not a reason for killing anyone, but I have heard of that. It's a certain type of psychosis.
So you honestly don't think he remembers what happened after he struck her in the head?
They're not releasing what happened.
Yeah.
Well, he said that he just blacked out, like after he hit her in the head.
There are that's in that type of science. There's a lot of debate as to whether or not that is all believable, and it's kind of like when people have amnesia or those kind of things. It's difficult to prove or not prove. I think if he's got an attorney, the first thing he should have said is something like that, because as it goes, Iowa doesn't have the death penalty, but it's the difference between life in prison and maybe 40 years in prison for a young man. That could be a life sentence or not.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of like people driving down the road? You might drive like 20 miles safely, but you don't remember the 20 miles that you drove. Have you ever heard of that?
Not really blacking out, but you just don't remember it subconsciously because you're thinking about something
just
else.
not important.
Yeah, I've had that.
But you're still driving like safely. And
this
everything.
is different though. This is killing somebody.
Yeah. No, I get what you mean, but
I don't know. And they haven't released. What were you gonna say, Colin? I thought you were gonna say something.
Oh, I've just had that time I was talking about before. Like I've been driving and then
and then you're just like, you don't realize what
they just come to sense.
They haven't released yet if she was raped or anything. They didn't talk about any of that. But I was gonna ask your opinion, John. Do you think he's an incel? Incelibate?
I've heard about the incelibates. That's interesting.
Very interesting topic.
Yeah, I have heard of that. That's very interesting. There's a lot of that, and I don't know how much you know about the background of how that was created.
Not really, not too much.
There was a lady. She was a lady researcher who started. Basically, she was incelibate, and basically, I don't know if you know what incelibate is. Maybe I should go back.
These guys might not.
They should.
Yeah. Two of them sitting here.
Lifetime incelibate over here. But
it's pretty.
Hey, I have car insurance through you, so
I can't confirm or deny that. But basically, the term incelibate means that basically you're not having sexual relations with anyone just because it just never happens for you.
They can't get a girl.
Basically, they can't find a girlfriend or a boyfriend. And so it's not really a choice. They just can't find anybody that will date them, basically. And so they call them incelibates. And so this lady researcher created a group. She's Canadian, I believe. She created a group of these incelibates to basically to study, to research. Why are you like this? Are you choosing to be like this? And from that group, there was a stabbing here a year or two ago. One of these incelibates had stabbed someone and said that was basically because it's part of the incelibate movement.
Yeah, they promote that.
You're correct. They promote that, basically, this violence. And so this lady researcher said, when I created this incelibate, I think they call them incels.
Yeah, incels.
Incels. When we created this movement, it was for research purposes. It was a place for us to gather and talk about why we were incelibate. Part of the reason she was incelibate, I believe, is that she was a lesbian but closeted. And so her relationships with men never really went anywhere. And so that's the other part of this incelibate issue is when you're incelibate, you're part of this movement. But when you all of a sudden find a man or woman and then you're not incelibate, if you cure yourself or move on, then you move from the movement. And so what does that mean? Well, so when new people join this incelibate movement, there's not the old guard talking to them about how they should behave and act.
Oh, yeah.
Because they've moved on. So you're getting a group of new people constantly. And so the turnover, that's why she said, I think this is happening, because the turnover, the new people don't understand what we were trying to do.
Yeah. Well, it's a dangerous thing. I was watching a documentary on it, and they were talking about how they promote, like you said, violence and stuff, and they were joking about shooting up schools and going out and killing females, and they hate females because they just don't think that they can get with one.
Yeah.
And I think it's all a mental thing. I don't think it really has anything to do with anything other than the fact that they're not trying, or if they did try, they got denied or rejected, and they took it so harshly that now they actually hate females, and they will go out and kill them. They have that guy that rammed the van into. Remember when that happened? He rammed the van. That was an incelibate.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, he rammed a van into some people, and it's really crazy to me. How this thing has got so perverse. Because when it started, and going back to the people who are unsuccessful with their trying to find a mate, I mean, they blame everyone else, and that incelibate movement wasn't about blaming people. It was, we want to feel like there's nothing wrong with us. We just choose to live a certain way.
Yeah.
But the problem and the crux of it is ultimately they don't want to live that way, and then they start to blame the people. Well, I'm not pretty enough for society, or good looking enough, or successful enough, and that's why these people won't have anything to do with me.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if that's what this guy is. I just kind of was saying that because why would you go out and just prey on a random girl unless he had trouble finding an actual mate to have, as his own? I
I think they all need to sit back and just look at themselves for once and see what they're doing wrong.
Yeah.
They're,
well,
like,
that's, and I just was kind of questioning that, because what if that's what this guy was actually, what if that was going through this guy's head when he was going out looking for Mollie or whatever?
You made a really good point there too. I think it's real easy for everybody to cast stones. Well, you're different this way or you're different that way. I think if our society spent more time trying to figure out how we're all the same, I mean, and that sounds really liberal and hokey, but that's the truth. I mean, I think I search out people in life who try to find the similarities to me. I try not to find people that, well, you're this because you're this. I mean, what does that do?
Yeah.
We all got to live together, and if we can't get along in that way, the basic human way, that's why we are where we are.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody wants to find these differences, and it's just disappointing.
Yeah, and you don't want to make up, you don't want to kind of speculate too much, because, we don't really know anything, and I'm sure the police are going to release information on this soon, within the next couple of weeks, and we'll figure out all the information, kind of just giving opinions on certain things. But we could kind of move on to another conspiracy kind of thing. John, you were talking to me about what it was called, QAnon, and I had never heard of it. I looked it up, and it was very interesting. If you kind of want to kind of talk about it a little bit to lead these guys into whatever, bring them into the same page.
Sure. Before I get started.
There we go.
Yeah.
Forgot about that. You've been wearing them for a while.
I know. Honestly, it feels good with the lights.
Could you see anybody?
No, thank God. This is a nice group, but I don't know about good-looking group.
Oh, no, never.
We should all take that as a compliment.
We're all going to be in celibates now, John.
I would love that. Where were you 30 years ago? No, I love my kids. I have 5 kids, so, I mean, clearly I'm not. But, anyways.
So the QAnon or whatever.
Yeah, so QAnon, thanks for bringing us back.
Yeah.
At our council meetings, they always say point of order, point of action. To try to get people back in.
I'll remember that for Tylan and Colin. Point of action.
QAnon was a group. It's an internet posting board where this guy they call Q, and the reason they call him Q in the federal government, Q is the security clearance of people that have the highest security clearance in the U.S. government and have access to nuclear codes and nuclear weapon. It's through the Department of Energy. So there's very few people in the country who have Q level clearance.
Really?
President Trump would be one, the Speaker of the House. I mean, there's very few people that have Q level clearance.
Yeah.
And so when this guy come on and he called himself Q, he didn't say who he was, but he represented somebody in the Trump government that basically was, ratting out people that were attempting to destroy Trump. The biggest problem, or the biggest thing that he said, was Hillary Clinton. That's one of them that he's talked about. How at first he was making really bold predictions. We know he or she was making very bold predictions about Hillary being indicted and arrested and all these kind of things. That never came to fruition. There was a couple other examples where he tweeted something about, I don't remember what, something about bridges or something, and said that Trump would reference that in a speech or in a Twitter. And he said, well, this will come up. He'll mention this. Well, it happened to be on a day where it was a national day of something. And so, of course, he was going to mention it because, so he's made these bold predictions. He's since backed off a little bit and become a little more cryptic, just kind of throwing things out and letting people connect the pieces.
Yeah.
But there's an entire segment of our society that believes that this Q is a real thing and that basically this, what they call the storm, is coming. And that storm is where there'll be a rash of people in and around the government, the Clintons, that type, the Soroses, that will be arrested because of the crimes they've committed. And they've also accused the Clinton Foundation of basically being a front for child sex trafficking.
I saw that on there. That's interesting.
And that's the more concerning one, is there's a lot more of that. It seems like a pervasion of sex trafficking or child sex trafficking that's come into our society. And
is that a real
I believe
thing?
It is. I do believe
really?
And I've done some research. I don't have any real hard evidence. The research I found is that I think there is a real problem with sex trafficking.
Wow.
And I think there's a lot of celebrities that are involved in it. And you see some of this when this Me Too movement came out.
Oh, yeah.
There was a lot of talk, the Harvey Weinsteins, the Bill Cosbys. that's the tip of the iceberg. That there's major
there's
Hollywood
huge
actors,
things that haven't been broken yet.
actors and actresses.
Yeah.
There was one from Smallville that just got arrested.
Really?
Here about 3-4 months ago.
Wow.
She was a lady that starred in Smallville, and she said, and they were charging her with sex trafficking.
Oh, really?
And that she has connections in Hollywood that basically encouraged her to sex traffic.
That's crazy.
And so that more of that will be coming out. I do think there's a sex trafficking issue in Hollywood. I do believe that's part of it. I don't know if it's the Q thing, but so that's what Q is.
Huh.
Yeah.
And do you personally think that the Q thing is it an actual government person, or is it somebody who's just trying to get people riled up?
I don't think it's real.
You don't think it's real?
I mean, there's if it was real, they could come out and pinpoint specific things. See, when you're in that sort of security clearance, the problem is you're not talking about 100 people who have this clearance. You're talking total maybe 25 people in the entire world who have this clearance.
And he's saying he's one of them?
Correct. And so when you have this, it's kind of like this. If you know a secret and there's 3 people that know it, and you say something about it,
Yeah.
they're going to be able to go, well, it wasn't me and it wasn't me. And that's sort of like divulging clearance, that high-level clearance stuff is treason. So if you get caught, it isn't you go to prison, it's,
see you later.
You're executed.
Yeah.
I mean, that treason is an executable offense.
Wow.
And so I think, could it be real? It could be real, but as the time has gone on and this Q has made predictions, they've come to be more false than true. And I think that's why he's backed away a little bit. But people want this. People want this conspiracy thing. They want to think that, people are all after Donald Trump. Yeah. I mean, I think people just don't like him. I don't know if that's a conspiracy. I think anybody come out who doesn't like him and say,
Oh yeah, I don't think there's any argument that people are against Trump. Like there's a lot, especially media and stuff. That's maybe why they're pintailing on it so much, is because it seems like no matter what you're watching or listening to, it's some negative thing about Trump. So I can see where they're coming from.
Everything ties back to something negative about him.
I actually related to the Mollie Tibbetts thing. I saw that it was MSNBC or something. They blasted Fox News because they were showing the press conference live of the Mollie Tibbetts. They were showing that press conference instead of talking about the whole thing going on with Trump and his lawyer right now. They MSNBC was on Twitter, and there's a bunch of people on Twitter blasting Fox News for talking about this small town. They called it a small town Iowa thing. Yeah. Instead of talking about Trump and his lawyer. That just seems a little. I mean, this was a pretty big deal. I don't care how if you just call it a small town Iowa thing. It was a pretty big deal for a lot of people. If we hear about Trump 24/7, take a break and talk about something else going on. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
And I think we got to be careful too. This whole chicken or egg thing with Trump, is it that we can't trust the media, or Trump said we can't trust the media? I mean, to me, when all the things were going on when Trump was elected, I think the best thing he could have done is say, hey, don't trust the media. They lie about stuff. You know they lie about stuff. And so now, when you hear a story, I know when I was younger, if CBS, NBC, any of them said this is the word, I had no reason to doubt it. Now there's so much misinformation. Who benefits from misinformation? Trump does. And so I do believe there is some fake news, but I also think that he says that to confuse the masses and to get people to believe kind of what he wants them to believe. I do believe. I mean, I think it's like this in any society, and Hitler did it too. You take the media and you discredit them. You make people believe that they are not telling the truth. So when things actually kind of come to be real, I don't know. I just think
I get what you mean.
I just worry about that.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't help when you add something like Facebook into the mix, where you have a fake article, and they've tried
or
to
like
fix
a super old article.
That's people have been doing that lately.
Yeah,
bring up an article from like 5 years ago, and then everyone thinks it just happened, like someone just got killed.
People don't click on it; they just share it right away. And then that's how all these, like, I call it like a huge rumor gets started all over the country. I don't think that Facebook is helping at all with that, especially when these older people are going on there and they don't know how to tell right from wrong, and they see one of these fake news websites put something on Facebook. Like, I remember back a while ago, there was a huge shooting in a mall in St. Cloud. Never happened or whatever, but someone posted this article on Facebook and everyone was sharing it around here. Never actually happened, but everyone was going crazy. Just stuff like that doesn't really back up the thing that you can trust the media when people keep sharing bunch of fake stuff. I don't think that really helps them much at all.
Well, and I know that the websites, the majority of even mainstream websites, CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, ESPN, they use that clickbait on their websites.
Oh, yeah.
You know that's their number one generator of income?
Really?
It is.
Wow.
And what they do, I know how these things work. They have companies. There's 2 major companies that handle these stories.
Wow.
They pull stories that they find off of Facebook. They have their writers rewrite them and then place them back onto Facebook with a catchy name so that people will click on it. Every time someone clicks on it, it takes you to that site.
Yeah.
Every time that site clicks, the website gets money.
Yep.
And they had a story of a guy whose wife had died delivering their baby. And he was on the website one day, like CNN or somewhere, and he sees his picture there, and it says, "You're not going to believe what this guy did after his wife died." And so he clicked on it and was like, "This is me." They pulled this picture of me off.
Jeez.
And so there's 2 major companies, and I wish I could remember their names, but there's 2 major companies that do that.
That's crazy.
And all the websites use it because that's how they drive their revenue. I mean, they're making millions of dollars a year off of that.
Oh, I believe it. I didn't know that was the biggest revenue.
That's how they drive. That's why they don't take them off of there. That's how they drive the revenue for all of their sites. And major sites. I'm not talking about fringe sites, like major sites.
You're talking huge news.
I'm talking CNN, ESPN, Fox News. All of them have those little clickbaits.
Am I that surprised though? Not really at all. I mean, any way to make money nowadays, I feel like if it's right or wrong, they're gonna try to figure it out.
Yeah, so. And they try to find stories that are really sensational, and they write really sensational.
Even more
headlines.
Sensational.
Correct.
Yeah.
And they take pictures off of websites they don't have permission to use. And then what happens when they get caught is they just take them down and replace them with something else. They actually have teams of writers who write these articles, place them, and they have advertisers who'll say, I like this, put this for our website. And they actually choose where they go.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing. Well, we're going to keep talking about that. We are going to take a little bit of a break here. When we come back, we're going to talk about more conspiracy theories and a bunch of other stuff with John. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Ethan Claire Podcast Show. We are here with John Gibeau, Tylan, Porath, and Colin Claire. We've been talking about Mollie Tibbetts again, which is a very relevant topic right now. We've been talking about celibants. We've been talking about incelibants. We've been talking about a whole bunch of random stuff. Before we do anything else, though, John has some pretty exciting news here, some big podcast news, and something that I'm pretty excited about. I know John's really excited about, and it's something that he's been working on for... it's been over a month, over maybe 2 months now that you've been coming up with this whole concept and everything. If you kind of want to talk about that a little bit, give you some time to plug what you're working on.
Sure. The podcast is called It's Life. There's a lot of podcasts out there that talk about pain and misery. Mine covers pain and misery, but it's more about regular people living their life. I'm excited about it. This is kind of something you and I have talked about a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
I've thought about a podcast probably since... October, November last year, and trying to put together what the best premise would be. And what I wanted to do is give a chance for regular people to tell their stories. And I think sometimes when you live in a rural area or someplace that's more remote, you think, geez, what could there be?
Oh yeah.
Some of the, and so
you'd be surprised.
Yeah. I mean, the podcast comes out October 15th. That's the date I think I'll be able to push it out. There'll be roughly 12 episodes. I've met some really amazing people. I met a woman who had taken her child. She's from Texas. She took her child in to get a vaccine, and they accidentally gave, and it's a 4-year-old child. They gave her a Gardasil vaccine and made her very sick.
Really?
And so the Texas state authorities took her child from her and have not given it back. It's been like 4 months.
Oh my gosh.
Just have kept her. And so this poor lady, she is Hispanic, and she's documented, but she's Hispanic. She's here, a legal citizen in this country, and they won't give her a kid back. They're saying that she basically, somehow that getting that vaccine was not the hospital's fault. It was hers.
What?
Yeah, exactly. And so this poor woman is just fighting for her life. And what I've tried to do in this podcast is give a voice to people who don't really have one.
Yeah.
I have another, and I don't want to give it all away, but there's another lady, a friend of mine, who has breast cancer. She's 30 years old. She has like a 5-year-old daughter, and her 5-year-old daughter grabs her phone and records a message. I don't want my mom to die. I want my mom. It's that kind of stuff. I have so it's not, like I said, it's not all pain and misery. Some of it's triumph over adversity, and I hope people give it a listen. It's called It's Life. It'll be on Apple. It'll be on. Try to get it on Google, of course, too.
And it's just called That's Life. And
it's
there
called
might
It's
be
Life.
It's Life. It's Life.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
I'll write that down, and we can make sure to plug that. Comes out October
15th.
October 15th.
I have there's one case in Martin County, and the only unsolved murder in Martin County back from the 1970s.
Oh, really?
There is the retired police chief in St. James. and he is going to, what we're going to talk about is he has taken on this case that's unsolved. It's a murder cold case from Martin County.
Wow.
And he's taken on the case, and he believes he knows who the killer is.
No way.
He does, and he's done research for 3 years. And so he knows who it is. He won't say it out loud. And so throughout this process, we'll talk about who the killer is. And at that point, I've tried to coax him to say who it is.
Yeah.
But he won't, because he doesn't want to get sued.
Yeah.
He knows who it is.
He knows who it is.
They can't do anything.
He says Martin County won't cooperate. Now, I won't get into all of it, but that's the crux of it is, here I am. I think I've solved this murder. I've narrowed it down to people who live there, etc. So there's that. I also have a survivor of the Las Vegas shooting.
Really?
That tells her story, how the bullets rained down on her. She wasn't injured, but was there for a concert and made it out with her life.
Oh my gosh!
And so we have a lot of really interesting guests, people that I think like I said, need their story told. I think it's important for these people. It's not just me trying to harp on a story. It's important for me to get this story out.
Oh yeah.
I think there was the lady too. One of the stories we're working on too is the lady from Sherburne who she claims Mayo Clinic medically kidnapped her.
What does that mean?
So what happened was, really quickly, and I'm giving away all my stories, but basically this is
a good trailer for people to tune in. Yeah.
And you get to hear my silky smooth voice. A whole bunch.
There you go.
But basically, this woman, it was Christmas 2 years ago, she had an aneurysm, a brain aneurysm. She's 19 years old. And because of the weather, they can't life flight her to Mayo. So she has to wait basically a day. They finally take her to Rochester by helicopter.
Wow.
Get her to Rochester. She has a brain injury. They give her a 2% chance of living. She does live.
Wow.
That's where the story goes off the rails. The family claims that they've cut them out of her life completely. They won't allow her to have contact with them. They took away her phone and iPad.
Oh, my gosh.
The family claims that they wouldn't let them have any contact with her at all, that they tried to get 2 counties to give them basically power of a medical attorney over her so that Mayo could make all her health decisions.
Wow.
And there's actually a video, and there's a video on Facebook where her family is smuggling her out of the hospital. They use the guise of, your grandma's in the van, wants to see you, trick someone else to go in and get her, and they brought her down to the van and said, honey, we're here to get you and take you home. And so they have video of her getting into this van and basically being like she's being abducted.
Oh my gosh!
But her family's
by
taking
the Mayo
her.
Clinic.
And Mayo Clinic is saying you can't leave. Her family's saying we're taking her, basically under the guise of we're going to see her grandma.
Yeah.
And so Mayo Clinic actually calls 911.
Oh my gosh!
And says you can't take her. It's a patient abduction. And the Rochester police say no, it isn't. She's 19 years old. She's of sound mind. You have no decision making abilities. Basically,
holy cow!
You're kind of, basically there's nothing you can do to them.
Yeah.
And so that's that story. I mean, it's crazy. Some of it's crazy stuff. A lot of it is, to me, more of just real life.
Yeah.
This is what happens to people. Things you would not expect around here.
Yeah.
So are you going to post that on, what are you posting it on?
Well, I'm going to have it. I'm sorry, I'm having a little headphone
issues there.
Sorry, guys.
He said he's going to have it on iTunes and Google.
Facebook?
iTunes, Google. I will put it on Facebook. I'm going to try and put it as many places as I can.
And it won't be a video podcast. It'll just be audio.
It will. Yeah, and the reason for the delay is there's a lot of stories and a lot of editing. And so we've talked a little bit about that. That's not my forte. I'm surrounding myself with people who do that. And so I'm not saying you guys have to do that, but my time isn't free here. No, I'm just
there we go.
So
we'll help you out with it.
You've been a great help. I mean, I said, what equipment do we need? And you sent me this laundry list of Word document. I just kept clicking and clicking. I'll just keep going until I run out of money. And so I didn't. And you guys have been a great help to me, and I appreciate you letting me plug it tonight. I'm very excited about this.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
I'm pretty excited to start listening.
Yeah, October 15th, people, you got to tune in. We will keep talking about that every week until October 15th.
I appreciate
to give John just a big audience here because we want other people to have success with podcasts. I also know another guy that was on the podcast, Chant from Jackson. He's starting his own podcast too. If you guys didn't know that. Haven't seen one of the episodes yet, but he's starting his own. I don't know if he's I think he's calling it like Hustle.
Maybe I'll teach you how to mow a lawn.
Well, I don't know if that's the name of the podcast. I don't know how you're going to teach
No. Like he's talking about teaching other people how to mow lawn.
Oh, that's what he's talking about?
I'm kidding.
I don't know, but
I don't know what's going on. But speaking of Facebook, John, I see you getting some heated discussions maybe
I do.
on Facebook. You got any crazy stories you want to talk about?
Here's the thing. As I think what you guys will figure out, too, as you get older, you tend to become a little more conservative in your views. Mm-hmm. And I've said this from the very beginning. You could look at all my Facebook posts. Some of my stuff gets super heated by the people that I'm friends with. I think you'll rarely, if ever, see me get angry at anybody because I'm on there to just express my views. Mm-hmm. And sometimes even people I'm on the city council in Ceylon, people get irritated that I say what I say on social media.
Oh, really?
One of my posts was, if you're breaking, we had a break-in at one of the city buildings. I said, well, I just want you to know, if whoever did that, we're coming for you. And I didn't say we're going to come and lynch you. I just said we're coming for you. We're going to use the full extent of the law to punish you if we catch you breaking. We had somebody that broke into our museum.
Oh, really?
And so it's like, if you want John Gibeau to be your worst enemy, go and break into Ceylon's museum. And we have... probably $1 million of artifacts in there overall. I mean, there's just things in there that really have no intrinsic value to people, just like to sit in your shelf. But I mean, things that are part of our heritage.
Oh, yeah.
Some pretty rare things that that are pretty important to Ceylon, artifacts. And someone had tried to break in the door. And to me, it's like, you live here. If you're going to live here, you're going to follow our rules. And if you can't follow our rules, you need to leave. Yeah. Well, there was people on the council that, you can't talk like that. And it's like, I'm going to talk however I want.
Yeah.
These people have elected me to do a job.
Yeah.
If there's people that are offended that I'm saying we're going to hold you accountable, don't do dumb stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the point of this. And so, to get back to the Facebook thing. So I go on to Facebook and I say this kind of stuff. And the rule I have with all the people that are my friends is that you can have conversations. I don't try to convince people of other things, really. It's more of, this is my opinion. And if you're going to give an opinion, be respectful of that person, not personal shots. I don't allow that sort of stuff. And it's funny, I'll start off with something. In today's world, it always comes back to Trump.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, everything. Well, so-and-so's dog got hit. Well, if Trump would have... I mean, it's like everybody just wants to go back and beat Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'm so happy that, at least in 8 years, maybe even sooner, that he'll be gone. And not because I particularly hate the man, because, I mean, his Twitter is gold.
Oh, yeah.
His Twitter... I mean, if you want to listen to 3 in the morning calling some... Asian leader in the middle of Asia, a big fat whatever. I mean, it's gold.
To me, it's funny to watch people get riled up about Twitter posts or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
He'll say something really dumb or stupid or funny or whatever, and every news organization is talking about it. Like, he's really a genius he can distract people if he doesn't want certain things to get out, or like, someone found out something that Donald Trump did 20 years ago with this porn star or whatever. Now Donald Trump's tweeting about whatever, Subway or something random, and then all of a sudden the news is talking about that. He kind of, I mean, it's a dumb thing to do, but he uses it to his advantage.
Yeah. He controls the news.
He controls the news. Like you were talking about earlier, how he knows what's going on, and he can utilize these by calling everything fake or whatever. He can use that to his advantage to kind of change things. If that's a good thing, bad thing, however you want to look at it, it's a way to kind of boost people and get more people on your side. Yeah. So that's kind of either way you look at it. But social media, like you said, it can have a lot of positive effects, or you get negative effects. People get arguing on there,
right.
And I don't know. I follow you on Facebook. I'm friends with you. Yeah. I haven't followed all of your arguments or whatever Colin was talking about on there.
I just see like
how much
long.
Time do you have in a day?
I just see long comments on all John's posts of like.
You got people that are after you, John, or what?
Well, always. I'll go back real quick. There's a movie about 20 years ago called Wag the Dog. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
No.
Basically, you ever heard the term, that's the tail wagging the dog?
Oh, okay.
So basically, the premise of this movie was there was a president, and he was under fire, and I think it was softly modeled after Bill Clinton. And so what's the one way to forget about what Bill Clinton did? Create a war in Bosnia.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what Trump does, is that when the house is on fire here, he focuses on the bigger house down the street that's on fire, or maybe just another fire. It doesn't even have to be bigger.
Yeah.
And so, these Facebook posts, I mean, I will admit, sometimes I put things on Facebook that intentionally rile people up. I don't know if it's to rile them up, but I want them to think of things in a different way.
Oh, okay.
And so it sometimes come across like I'm kind of baiting people.
Or maybe just for your entertainment purposes.
Well, it is fun sometimes. I mean,
it's
when I see people just go crazy over stuff, and it's and some of it's really stupid. They had a post, someone in Welcome, Minnesota, this is north of Seattle, really nice town. They had built a new water tower.
Oh.
And I haven't seen this picture, but there was a picture of a child who is feeding their horse water. Okay?
Huh.
And apparently the silhouette resembles a black child. Someone thought it looked like a black child. And what it is they have this thing in the middle. It's Main Street Welcome.
Yeah.
They have this thing it's probably 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
It has 2 spigots. And there's a sign that says water for horses and humans. That's what the sign says, for horses and humans.
Yeah.
And so, and that Welcome's pretty proud of that. That's kind of their call to fame, is this thing's from 1914.
Oh my gosh.
And so I was joking. I made a comment on there. I said, the bigger question here isn't whether or not that's, a racist thing. To me, it's more of, why are we celebrating something that's 100 years old that's basically a big dirty water dish for horses and humans?
Yeah.
And, I was just joking, but it offended people in Welcome. I wasn't trying to do that. But you try to be funny. I try to be funny. And, it's just, someone reads that and goes, ha, ha, ha. Someone else reads it and says, well, I don't need to take a dirty shot. I mean, everybody's got something they're proud of.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to me, it's like, why... The people who live, I know the people on the city council in Welcome, they're not racist.
No.
There's nothing about them that's racist, and everything becomes a racist comment. You can't say anything to anybody without it. Well, you don't like this person. Sometimes people make mistakes.
Yeah.
You put something up there and you go, geez, that doesn't look right. I mean, sometimes when you talk about things, it sounds one way, and then you actually do it and you go, yeah, that's pretty terrible.
Yeah.
Companies do it all the time. They do something dumb and they go, what were they thinking? Why would they do that?
Yeah.
Well, nobody really even thought.
No. You never thought it'd go that. Well, that's a good question then. Why do you think right now, this is a good topic to get into, why do you think political correctness has got so, I guess, relevant right now, where people get offended by nearly almost anything that you say or anything you talk about or any joke you make? Why is it relevant right now or so heightened right now than compared to 20 years ago?
Well, I think part of it is 20 years ago, if you didn't like something, you basically just drank yourself to sleep. And now, well, seriously, I mean, that's what it was. You went and kicked your dog, and I'm not advocating violence against animals. It's more of an expression.
You just offended me.
You went and did something. Yeah, right. Sure.
Go write about it on Facebook.
I'm PETA.
Right, well, right. So that's what people did. Now you get on social media, and every Tom, Dick, and Harry, Susan, and Jim has their own voice.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like, I love people, but some people should keep their voices to themselves.
Oh yeah,
because they're just destructive to people. I mean, I say a lot of stuff. I don't go on there and I'm not burning down people for things. To me, it's like there's satire. You can make fun of people for things that are kind of out there.
Yeah.
But when you make fun of things for things that people can't control, to me, that's always been the line.
Oh yeah.
You don't make fun of people who are disabled.
No,
you don't make fun of people because of race.
No. Yeah.
I don't do those kind of things because, number one, I don't think it's funny.
Yeah.
But more than that, it's like, I was raised, you don't make fun of people who can't control those things.
Oh,
and
yeah.
now there's a group of people that everybody has an opinion. Something blows up on Twitter, something small, and all of a sudden you got 1 million people chiming in from 1 million miles away.
Oh, yeah.
And, 20 years ago, if you had a problem with somebody at school, they said, meet across the street at the vacant lot away from the schoolyard because you didn't want detention.
Yeah.
And you kicked the crap out of each other.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, you shook hands and you said, you beat the crap out of me.
Yep.
Or, hey, I'm sorry I beat the crap out of you. That kind of thing. And then the next day at school, everything was good.
Yeah.
That's not how it works anymore. Everybody throws these bombs from 20 miles away. And to get back to another thing, part of the reason I'm active on social media is I try to stop people from bullying.
Oh yeah.
And that's the thing. Like my kids, I had a kid who was bullied, and I was bullied as a kid. But for me, back in the 80s and 90s, when you get bullied, what happened is that you have this kid who picks on you, and you hate it, and you hate yourself. and you go home, and then summer happens, and that kid either graduates or becomes disinterested, moves on, and it's over. Now a kid gets bullied at school, they get bullied in sports, they have their cell phones, they go home, and somebody's bullying them at home. Online. I mean, it just never ends. All summer long, all day long, day and night. And you wonder why these kids are killing themselves. Well, they're confronted with this terribleness all the time, and there's no shut-off switch. That's part of the reason I'm running also for school board in Fairmont.
Talk about that too.
Because bullying to me is so pervasive everywhere. Fairmont's done a really nice job of kind of handling that. But to me, I think if you're going to stop bullying at its core, we need to have a program in schools that creates what I like to call a kindness program. From the moment they become, preschool, kindergarten age, you spend 10 minutes or 15 minutes each day talking about why being kind is important, doing good deeds for your neighbor. It doesn't have to be something special every day, but something that you do to show kids to teach kindness. Because this thing, if you get to them by the time they're freshman or sophomore in high school,
too late.
If they're going to bully, they're doing it. And so I think our approach has been too short-sighted. We need to do something at earlier age. And I think if we get to kids that are 9th through 12th grade and they're still bullying at a large level, we also need to hold the parents accountable because that's a systemic problem. Kids aren't born to bully. They're being taught that. And more likely they're being taught that at home.
Well, it is a very good point that you made there. And another thing that we could ask is, you got kids, John. You got quite a few kids. But what is a good age for a kid to get a cell phone? Because every time, it seems like every episode, no matter what we're talking about, all comes back to social media. Such a huge problem. What do you think is a good age for a kid or a teen or whatever to get a cell phone that actually needs one?
It really is dependent upon their situation. We had a thing when I was a kid. It's called latchkey kid. A kid that's home by themselves, or a kid that has to take the bus by themselves. That could be as early as 6, 7, 8 years old.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And so you got to keep that in mind. I think really it comes down to what are they using it for? I mean, my kids, I think the youngest one had one, I think he was 12 when he got one. And the reason he got one at 12, I was getting divorced at the time.
Oh, gotcha.
And it was just the easiest way for us to communicate was for him to have his own phone.
Yep.
And so that I think it's really case by case. I think the biggest thing we have to watch is social media.
Oh, big time.
Snapchat, Instagram. You got to make sure, especially on Snapchat, they're being appropriate.
Oh, yeah.
And that's one of the things I'm working on, too. A project that will get kicked off this winter is one that will address sexting in schools. Not just in schools, but just children sexting. And a lot of, in this state included, if you are, say, a 17-year-old kid and you text a picture of your junk to your 15-year-old girlfriend,
big trouble.
That's considered child pornography. And so I want to go into these schools and I want to talk specifically. I want to have a 2-day program where we talk about, the first day we talk about to the parents about what kind of things we're going to talk about. And then the next day we have the kids come in for a program during school. And we talk about sexting and we talk about being appropriate using social media and how that can affect you. The other part of that is, behaving on social media, because a lot of employers look at social media when they hire people. Because if you're acting like a dingus on social media, you're probably going to act like a dingus at work and put your income at jeopardy. And so that's important. And so then after that, the reason we do the parents first and then the kids is because we want the kids and parents to go home that night, meet together and discuss these issues. And how do you feel about this? Would you tell me if this was going on? Maybe let's just go over, when a kid has a phone, what are our policies? When should they shut them off? What do we allow kids to have? To me, it's like having a phone's one thing if they're on YouTube watching videos or whatever, nice videos. Or if they're, into Snapchat sending pictures of themselves, because there's a lot of predators out there.
Oh, big time. So, we talked about that. And it's what kind of drove you to do the school board? Is it issues like this that it kind of pisses you off where you're like, I got to make a change?
Well, and he has kids. So
I guess it directly affects you. A lot of people wouldn't have the motivation or the time or the drive or anything to, or I guess dedicate their time to go run for a government position. But you are on the city council, and you just got driven to become part of the school board. Is that kind of what happened?
Yeah, I ran for school board a couple of years ago. I didn't win. It was a special election. And, when I first got into politics, I won my very first campaign for mayor back in 1998. And I date myself, right? Back in 1998, and I thought, man, politics is great because I will never lose a campaign. I will always win. That's not how it works. But yeah, I think the point is there. I've always been a person that, like, if you're complaining about something or you feel bad about it, stop just bitching about it. Go out and do something. Go out and actually talk to people, figure out what's going on, and try to get solutions.
Exactly.
I mean, the things I talk about with the sexting and having kindness in schools, that's not something that John Gibeau is going to be able to go onto the school board and just happen. He's going to have the collaboration of the students, the parents, and that's the other thing. I mean, people want to blame social media and all these different places why your kids are screwed up. How about instead of sitting on your phone for 2 hours every night, why don't you go to your kids and have conversations, read books? When I started my foundation, the first thing I did was create that reading program. Every child in Ceylon from ages 0 to 5 gets a free book.
Oh, really?
From the time they are born to the time they turn 6 through age 5, every child in Ceylon, in the Ceylon zip code, receives a free book, an age-appropriate book. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Huh. And that's something that you did as you were mayor or city council?
That's something that I did. Actually, this program I wanted to get started, and so I couldn't get any of the nonprofits to cooperate with me in Ceylon, which is, it was kind of a new program. So what I did was, this winter I decided, it was around December, I decided I'm going to start my own nonprofit. It's through the Dolly Parton Foundation. It's called Imagination Library.
Okay. Yeah, my sister had that. Yeah.
Yep. And they have it here in Windham. And so Dolly Parton started this foundation back in 1997, started this program. Since 93. Since this program started, she's given away 110 million books.
Oh my gosh.
She has her 100 millionth book is in the Library of Congress in Washington.
Wow.
And sorry, people call me all the time.
Oh my gosh.
And popular guy.
Yeah, popular guy.
And so we decided to start this program in Ceylon, and we don't have a library in Ceylon. They don't have access to books.
Oh my
It's very likely the books that they receive from our foundation will be the only books they get until they actually get into kindergarten.
Wow.
I was online one day. I got a message. Or I saw a Facebook post that there was this group doing a documentary on Imagination Library. It's called 100 Million Stories.
Oh.
And so I sent him a message and said, I know you're in Minneapolis interviewing people about this Imagination Library because of the 100 millionth book. I said, I'd love to chat with you guys because they're going to have it on Netflix, this documentary.
Oh, really?
Figured I wouldn't hear anything. About 15 minutes later, I get a message, hey, we're actually into Minneapolis today. Would you mind meeting with us tomorrow?
Oh, wow.
For an interview. And so they came down to our museum and they did an interview for about 30 minutes talking about the Imagination Library and our program and how we got it all going. And so we'll be in that documentary.
You'll be on Netflix?
Yep, in 6 months. 6-7 months. They got to edit it. They got it all recorded now.
Wow, that's awesome.
The former governor of Tennessee, I think his name is Bredesen, he's on there. Dolly Parton's got a segment. Just a number of people. It was sponsored by, I think, the University of Tennessee. And their film group down there. So this is kind of a big deal. But yeah, that's the thing. I've always been into education.
Yeah.
I kind of wish I'd have focused a little more in school, and my priorities weren't in the right spot. And I want to make sure these kids, by the time they get to kindergarten, they at least have books in their hands.
Oh yeah.
Because that's important. I mean, how many kids read books anymore?
Yeah.
And so my 2 little kids are signed up, and they just love that program. I mean, they're so excited when that book comes in the mail.
Well, that's real great. I didn't even know you did that.
Yeah, they put their name on the book. So hey, Wyatt, it's your book today.
Yeah.
Or Josie, it's your book today. And they fight over whose book it is, and that's kids fighting over books. That's what I want.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. So, sorry to get so long-winded, but that's
great.
That's what we've been doing.
I'm glad you brought that up because it's something cool that's going on. And I think one thing that you mentioned a while ago was you said instead of being on your phone or whatever, why don't you talk to your kids? That brings me back to something that Damon said. I don't remember if it was 2 episodes ago or whatever. He said a lot of these issues start at home. Before anywhere else or before dealing with anybody, it goes back to home. Your home life, how you deal with your parents, how your parents deal with you. And I'm just trying to figure out how a lot of these, you're starting to see mental illnesses becoming a lot more prevalent in kids. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Why is that becoming such a huge issue? And that that's something that it might not be able to be answered. But why is it now that it seems like there's more and more kids that are having these mental illnesses, whether it's depression or anxiety or whatever? I'm wondering what's causing all this. Is it social media, or is it just the family life at home is not what it used to be back in the day? Our families collapsing?
I think it's all of it. I've put a lot of time into this because in my family we have some mental illness. And I think part of it is, 30 years ago, if you had somebody who was mentally ill in your family, you put them in a home and you didn't talk about it.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
And, I grew up, my family owned nursing homes, and we had patients who came there, and they were for, mostly when you think of nursing homes, you think of people who are elderly or whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
We actually had people who were mentally ill, mentally disabled.
Wow.
Developmentally disabled, one with Down syndrome, some with schizophrenic tendencies. And so, from the time I was 7-8 years old, I was around these people.
Wow.
And I saw their struggles. And I think, there were people in that facility that would tell me like they went through shock treatments. That's a thing.
Oh my gosh.
You know, they put that thing on your head and they zap you, and that was a way that they thought they would be able to cure that mental illness. And a lot of times it just caused brain damage.
Wow.
And so these that's how these poor people were treated.
Yeah.
And so now I think the best thing that can happen to get this kind of awareness of mental illness, because I don't know if there's more. I think there's more awareness.
Yeah.
And I think these kids, I think they're recognizing it at an early age. And it's not early enough. I mean, you're still seeing these school shootings.
Yeah,
and
it's a huge issue.
And I want to make a very clear distinction, because I think sometimes it's real simple and it's lazy to blame mental illness for the time that someone, well, they must have been sick because they shot people. I told a coworker this the other day. I said, I think to say that it's mental illness is too simplistic. If there can be super good people and we say they're perfectly normal, why can't there be super evil people?
Yeah.
I mean, there in every other part of the world, there's polar opposites.
Oh, yeah.
Why can't there be just people who aren't sick, but maybe they're just really evil?
Yeah.
I mean, because to me, when you say someone's sick, in a way, it's demeaning if they're not really sick. And then it's taking the hook off of someone who's just a really awful person.
Yeah.
And so to go back to the question, I really think it's all those things. I like the fact that there's more awareness, because the only way that people are going to get well is through that. And I had someone say to me once, I'm depressed, but I don't want to take pills because of the stigma, what people might say.
Yeah.
Because when someone takes pills for mental illness, they go, well, what's wrong with them? What's wrong with their head? Well, I mean, if you had cancer, would someone say, why are you taking chemo? Yeah. That's so weak of you.
I know what you mean.
Fight the cancer with your hands, or, go pray. I mean, we need to get over that where, geez, if someone's taking a pill, somehow they're not a good person anymore, or they're weak. That isn't the case. I've been around it my whole life, and there's medicines that are saving people's lives, and if they don't take it, they put themselves and everyone around them at risk.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I really like what you said before was very interesting to me. I never heard that before. The fact that you said that there are some people who are the polar opposite of very good. They're very evil. Yeah. Right. And that makes a lot of sense to me, and that's something that you don't really ever hear, because every time you hear a school shooter or whatever, you hear mental illness or whatever. But what if that's a good point. What if they actually just are so evil that there's nothing you could do to ever help these people out? And that kind of, well, how do you end the debate that there's an issue that needs to be solved? Right. There might not be anything that we can really do to stop these people then to counter, like almost a counter defense.
Right. I mean, I think people want to think that we can stop these things all the time.
Yeah.
We may not be able to stop these things.
No.
I mean, unless we can hear and see what's in people's minds. And I think that's what scares people. I mean, when you hear these things, you want to go, there's got to be a solution.
Yeah.
There's got to be something we can do.
Well, everyone wants to solve the problem.
I mean, it's like this. You can make cars you won't remember this, but I drove a car that didn't have seatbelts. Until I don't think they were standard in cars until 1966 or 7.
Oh,
they weren't standard.
Wow.
I had a car once where I think it was a 1970 Cadillac. It had a shoulder belt here. It had a lap belt. You weren't required to wear the shoulder belt because of the age of the car.
Huh.
And so you guys don't remember that, but there was a time when cars were killing people all the time. When you get in a car accident in an old car, what happened is that the egg is in the carton, but the egg is being moved all over the carton, and the carton isn't getting smashed. It's staying, like old cars, they say, oh, they were built so well. They were built too well. These new cars, when you get in an accident, they crunch up.
Yeah.
Well, the reason they crunch is so you don't. And so my point in that was, there was a time where, people drove unsafe cars, and now they're much safer. Have we eliminated deaths in cars?
No.
So to think that we're going to eliminate school shootings, I don't know that we can. It's a very good goal, and of course the goal should be 0.
Yeah.
But I think when we need more mental health awareness, and we need to call people out when they're maybe just bad people. To say that everyone's mentally ill, I think it's lazy.
Big time.
And like I said, for people who really are sick, I think it puts that stigma on there. Well, you're one of them.
Well, big time.
I mean, I don't know, and it doesn't mean that they can't be evil and sick, but to think that a guy like Adolf Hitler, I use him as an example. A terrible human being. Human being. But if he was so deluded and paranoid, how he put these plans in place so systematically doesn't make a lot of sense.
Sociopath or psychopath.
That's it. I mean, he had a vision. He followed it through. To say that he was just mentally ill, I think he was. But to say he was just mentally ill,
pure evil.
It is absolutely. And those people still exist in our society, and
we got to catch them and lock them up before they do anything.
Well, or we find a way to intervene. Medicine's evolving. Find a way to change personalities.
There's crazy,
medicine. I mean, we have to think outside the box here. I think, and I think that's one of the things that's changed for me as I've gotten older. It's more of, Well, the key when someone does something terrible is you put them away. Our prisons are not set up to rehab anybody.
No.
If you're in the bane of punishment, you will punish them as much as you want.
Yep.
But that's not going to change people, and especially young people. You put them in prison. It's a recent thing, 1970s, where they've started charging children as adults.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Until the 1970s, that didn't happen. There was a case in the 1970s where a guy who was 17 killed a bunch of people on a subway. And the governor said, you know what, it sucks that this guy's going to go to prison for 11 years, and that's it. He killed like 3 people. They said, we need to be able to charge children that are of a certain age as adults because they're making adult decisions.
That is true, though, yeah. I can see where he's coming from in that kind of situation.
Yeah.
Whoa. Well, that is the bell here. I think we are wrapping up here. We've talked about a lot tonight with John. We've kind of been all over the place, but it's been a great conversation about a lot of different things, and I know I have a lot of things written down that we never even got to, and I know John was talking about coming on again, hopefully more often, because we'd love to get you on, and we'd love to talk to you about stuff. So thank you very much for coming on, John. It's been a pleasure to have you. Thank you, Tylan and Colin, again for coming on, and I just want to remind everybody to share, comment, retweet, like, subscribe, and also throw the podcast a review. That always means a lot to us. And don't forget, October 15th is when John's podcast is coming out. It's Life. It will be on iTunes, Google, Facebook. I don't know what other Spotify, maybe. Whatever streaming platforms you guys are using, check it out for sure. That'll be I know it's going to be really good because you gave us a really good little spoiler for it. I'm excited.
Then check out my foundation at Ceylon Area First, CEYLON Area First. We have about 200 likes right now, but you'll see a lot of different things. We sent Twins. The Twins gave us some free tickets. We sent almost 30 people to a Twins game for free. And,
jeez.
Yeah, we just got a $4,000 grant from the Martin County Area Foundation for our iPlay system. We're putting in a fitness system in the fitness center. So, yeah, sorry to interrupt, but
that's
we're
good,
doing a ton of things, and we want to get it out there. So.
I appreciate the hustle. And I'll link all of that stuff in the description so that anybody doesn't have to look anything up because people are lazy. So I'll just put all the links down there so that people can just click those and check it out. I didn't know a lot of the stuff John's doing. I'm interested to hear more about that too. So check out that Ceylon First, and we will be back next week. We got a couple very interesting people on next week, so you're going to definitely not want to miss that one. This is the Clerc Podcast Show. Thank you for listening.